Okay, so this is your chapter 8 circle questions. We are looking for values, missing values for x here on your worksheet, and a few things that you're going to want to know here. That in question number 1, for example, we're looking for x. I do see a right triangle that it's a part of. If this is a right angle, that means that this side is a right angle as well. So that's a right triangle that x is a part of. Okay. 14.6 appears to be this length right here. So that's the length of this side of the triangle. And then we're given 16.2 on the other side. So please note that this is a radius, right? From here to here, that's a radius of a circle, which means that this is also 16.2 because it's also a radius. So we use Pythagoras' theorem here, which I saw on your sheets that most of you did that. So remember which ones you add. You add the squares of the legs. That is the sides that make the 90 degree. Those are the ones you add together. So let's go 14.6 squared plus x squared equals 16.2 squared. Okay, now does that, do you guys agree with that? Any of you have that? Okay, excellent. If you had that, that's great. So you're going to want to get your calculator out here. You can do that to make it easier to make 14.6 squared and 16.2 squared. Let's see. Here it's coming. Okay. So 14.6 squared is what? 213. Okay, 0.16. So let's do, I'm going to have to do 16.2 squared minus 14.6 squared. Do you guys agree with that? Because I want to get this over to the other side. So we subtract from both sides. So on your calculator, you can do it any which way you want. I'll do this. 16.2 squared minus, I already figured out 14.6 squared, so let's use the answer function on our calculator. That's a good idea. Equals 49.28. Okay. Is that my answer? 49.28? Anybody get that for an answer? Okay. Are we done? Is that the final answer? Is that the length? So what I'm trying to get at here is I want you to check your answer. If you said this is my answer, you want to look at the question. See how x here is actually shorter than both of these two sides, which makes sense. So could x be 49 if the longest side of this right triangle is 16? No. So what do we have to do? Is one step we have to do. Yeah, square root. Okay. Some of you saw that right from the start. So we'll take the square root of both sides, and that's going to be looking like, I'll use my answer function again. The answer key on your calculator is really handy. So 7.01997 or 7.02. Did you get that? X equals. Now they just have one decimal place. So, and it says here to the nearest tenth. So that's just one decimal place. So rounded properly is going to be 7 point what? Should that stay as 0 or should that go to a 1? Okay, I heard some say 1, I heard some say 0. So what you do is you look at this, the 10th place, that's the first decimal place, and you look to the number to the right of it. If that number is 5 or greater, then you can move this 0 up to a 1. If it's less than 5, you keep it as 0. So 1 is less than 5, so we'll leave that as 7.0. And are there any units? That's the other thing you want to look at. Units? Nope, no units. So you can just leave it unitless. That's fine. Okay, so I get 7.0. Who else got 7.0 for number 1? Good? Awesome. All right, let's skip down to something that looks maybe a little bit different. What else? This one right here, number 3. I'll do number 3 for you because we're finding the radius. So again, you want to spot a right triangle that has at least, oh, those are terrible lines, that has at least a couple of the values that you want to work with. So this one actually has all 3 values, doesn't it? So you don't have to redraw this, but I will redraw this right triangle just to show you that this is 5.5, the short side, 12.3 is the other leg, and then x is my hypotenuse there, really, of that triangle. So which ones do I add? Do I add x squared and 12.3 squared? No, which ones? A and B, which are? 5.5 and 12.3. Very good. So 5.5 squared plus 12.3 squared equals x squared. Awesome. So there's not a lot of rearranging I have to do to get x by itself, right? This is kind of an easier one. So 5.5 squared plus 12.3 squared equals 181.54, and that equals x squared. So I am going to have to take the square root of this answer. Hopefully you did this as well. Did you get 13.5 for a final answer? Excellent. I'm seeing lots of heads nodding, so that's great. All right. Any questions about those first two? Or those two that I did anyways. Okay. I will reveal probably some more answers a little bit later for this one. But is there anything on the second page that's a bit different?
Yes, like question 10.
Okay, so question 9 looks a little different. Question 10 looks a little different.
11.
Okay. So let's take a look at number 15.7. Is that a radius, looks like?
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like 15.7 should be the radius. Okay, let's take a look at number 9, because number 9 looks a little strange. And at this point, you only know about a third of sort of all the rules to do with chords. So this is a chord, and we're gonna, in 8.2, we're gonna learn those. So this class, you guys haven't learned all the rules surrounding chords yet, but you don't need to with this. You don't need to know that just yet. So what you wanna do here is you wanna see a couple things. You wanna see that you have a right triangle here. That's great. We're gonna probably be able to use that. We have 11.3 is this side down here, and we have 14.3 is this side over here. So I could find this length right here, right? I could find that pretty easily because that's part of the right triangle. But I don't want this side, I want x. So does anyone see how this red side and this x length, does anyone see how those are related? Anybody see how those are related? Now, this is important. This is the kind of stuff that you need to pick out of these problems, okay? And this is where it gets tricky. All right? You need to see that, I'll show you what you need to see. You need to see that this length plus x, this is what? That is the radius of the circle. Yes. Do we know what the radius of the circle is? What's the radius of the circle? Yeah. So check this out. Now, this to me is maybe a little bit warped. I don't know if it's exactly to scale, but it looks like it should be there. But this side right here, that whole length, x plus this side of the right triangle, is equal to 14.3. So you have to put some things together here for this math. It's not a matter of, oh, I'll use Pythagoras theorem, I'm done. I can not hardly think about it. Oh, there's a formula. I'll just plug some numbers in and calculator, done, write it down, move on. No. You have to use some of the formulas that you learn, like Pythagoras' theorem, and then you have to kind of step back a little bit and say, okay, I'm trying to find x. How is that related to what I know? Ah, x plus that side of the triangle is the radius. So if I find this side right here, right, I know that this length, whatever this is, plus x equals 14.3. So this is a multi-step problem. All right, so let's do it. Let's figure it out. So I've got, I'm going to find this one as, let's say w, okay? This is going to be w. So 11.3 squared plus w squared equals 14.3 squared. You guys okay with that? So 14.3 squared minus 11.3 squared, that's going to be what w squared is going to be equal to. Now, could I just say this? I don't know if any of you have ever thought of doing this, but here's one thing you can't do that I've seen students do before, okay? Give them a tap there. So what you can't do is this. You can't go 14.3 minus 11.3 is 3. So this is 3 squared. Please don't do that, okay? You can't do that. You can't subtract these numbers and then forget the fact that they're squared. So this is not just 14.3 and this is not just 11.3. So you can't kind of pluck those out and do a simple subtraction and then decide to bring the squared back in later. Can't do that. And I don't know if anybody's ever thought of doing that, but it looks like to me like somebody might think of doing that. So we don't want to do that. Instead, we have to evaluate this whole thing, including the squared, And this whole thing, including the square, those are two separate identities, and we will combine them in a sec, okay? So, I don't know if anybody has ever thought of doing that, but please make sure you don't do that. So 14.3 squared minus 11.3 squared is 76.8, okay? 76.8. Now double check that. Got the squareds in there. Okay. Let's take the square root of the answer. Square root of the answer is W equals 8.8 rounded to one decimal place. 8.0. Oh. It's gonna crash. Crash and burn. Oh, here it comes. Back to life. So this answer is, what did we say it was? 8.8. Oh, 76 something. Thank you. 8.8. That's easier for you guys to see, right? Okay, so 8.8, that's W. I'm not done because I want to find X, but we know how to do X now. We know how to find X. Let me zoom back in here. So I know that W plus X has to equal 14.3. So 8.8 plus X equals 14.3. X equals 14.3 minus 8.8. You might be able to do that in your head. Congratulations if you can. You don't have to though. So 14.3 minus 8.8. Let's see what that is. 5.5. So X equals 5.5. How many of you got 5.5 for number 9? All right, I'm seeing some hands up. Good job. Is there a question about that?
So when you round, would you round when you get a answer like
Yep.
not like in the equation when you get an answer that's more than
Mm-hmm.
the tenth place, do you round it still?
Okay,
Or
so
just round the answer?
okay, so that's a good question. That's a good question. If you have a multi-step problem, it's a good idea to keep all the decimal places until the very end. That's what I would always suggest. So this W, yeah, you could have used all the decimals because that's not the final answer that you're looking for. Okay, thank you. I was kind of, yeah, I did round it to see if anyone would say, yeah, we're done, and that's why I was going to kind of say, no, we're not done. So yeah, so technically that's a good point. I would always suggest that this 8.8. Let's see if we can see it. What was it? 8.765. 8.7635. Fine. 8.7635 and so on. So if we use that number both here and over here, let's see if that changes things. 0.67, 76. 7635. And what do you end up getting here then?
5.
Do you? Okay, let's just see. So 14.3 minus 8.7, where is it here? 8.7635. Okay, so still be 5.5. It would still be 5.5 because this 3 is not greater. So it would still be the same answer, but yes, that's a good point. You should use full decimal places whenever possible. It turns out that it's, in some questions it doesn't make a difference, so yeah. Okay, any other questions?
You do 10.
10? Yeah, 10 is, sure, 10. I don't know if we'll do all 10, just for time's sake here. But notice you have a radius of 15.7, okay? Which means that you can draw the radius just like the last question, 15.7. So really this is exact same as this last question we did. You see? So now you have this right triangle, you can solve for this W, right? So that's the only little wrinkle. It just shows a bit different, but it's really the exact same kind of question. Okay, so just for sake of time, was there any other questions that you thought looked a little different that were pretty tough, or maybe 11? Let's take a look at 11. This is 28.8. Do you see that that's a diameter? I think that's a diameter there, right? So that means that half of that, or 14.4, would be the radius. So you can think about it like that. And then we have a right triangle. I have this side, I have this side. I can find W again, and so on. Okay? All right. let's see, anything down here that's really strange? Nope. These are kind of all the same. These are all the same. So I've given you a sample of each type question on this paper. So if you need to go over and double check any of your work, I will take this in as a graded assignment. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask now, but I'll get you to finish the rest of that assignment if you haven't done so already. And we might go over, I might go quickly over the vocabulary on the other sheet that I gave you, okay? So any other burning questions about this?